Welcome to the Arcfluence Podcast, where we talk about how design impacts the way we live, work, and invest. I'm Nick Caracan, your host, and with me today is my business partner and co-host, Paul Fatkins.
Good afternoon. Yeah, today we're talking with someone that you know pretty closely from coin stuff, right?
I have known Kathy Binner for years. She is...
Did you guys first meet when you came to Columbus, basically?
A couple of years after I came to Columbus, but we did meet through Coin. She is a mentor, an author, a 4-time author, and a speaker, and also a very successful real estate investor, and an entrepreneur. She is essentially she's a wealth of knowledge, and I know this is going to be a great conversation, so I'm excited to get into it.
Cool. Well, let's get started then.
Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, we're super pumped to have this conversation with you. We've known each other for years. We work together in Coin. You helped me run Central Ohio Investors Network, which is a local real estate meetup here in Columbus, Ohio.
I was going to say, you probably interact a lot more with Kathy than I do. I've seen Kathy around a couple of times at the Coin events. Her and I actually were on a panel recently. Yeah. I was going to say, you probably talk to her like every other week, probably.
Yeah. And she is a wealth of knowledge as an investor, as a business owner, as an author. So I really want to kind of dive into her life. She's actually, and I'll let you talk, Kathy, about all this, but like you're kind of living the dream where we are, all of us work very, very hard to get to a certain point where we can then travel, enjoy, mentor, teach, and experience the world on our own terms. And you're kind of doing that right now. So I really want to talk about that.
And the journey along the way, because what I gathered from when we were on the panel together, obviously, you've been doing this for a while. This isn't your first rodeo. So yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of stories and lessons learned along the way that you can share, to give some insight to your journey.
So Kathy, tell us about where you're at now, and then let's start from the beginning. And how did you get there? Tell us a little about yourself.
Wow. That's kind of a loaded question. Where I'm at now is I'm trying to be more and more retired, but you know what? I have that competitive spirit. And so when things come down the pike, I'm like, oh, I could do that. So I keep jumping on the bandwagon, even though I tell myself I need to stop because I love it.
Yeah,
you know how it is.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I just want to stop and do nothing and sit on a beach. I think, like you said, there's always going to be something that you want to do or take part in or whatever.
I'd really love a 20-hour work week instead of an 80-hour work week, but yes, I don't think I'll ever stop either.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, sitting on the beach is really fun for like the first 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I start to get bored. Yeah.
See, that's why I like my ski trips. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, where it all began for me, though, was I was a single mom, and I just was interviewed on another podcast, and it occurred to me during this other podcast, during the interview, that I've been living my life in segments of 20 years. Like the first 20 years, I'm trying to sort out what life is all about. You're getting out of school, college, whatever it is you've got going on. The second 20 years from like age 20 to 40, I was just working minimum wage jobs like my hair was on fire, trying to just keep the bills paid and decide, I need to buy a house because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to get married and have a family. And, that's kind of the expectation. And then by the time I was 40, that next 20-year period from 40 to 60, it occurred to me, those first 40 years went pretty fast. And what in the world am I going to do for retirement if I don't start maybe doubling my income or more? And I had no way to do that. I didn't know how to do that. So after some serious consideration and finding my way into the salon industry, which again, that was kind of a fluke. I found out what my nail tech was making and it shocked me. So I said, maybe I should check this out for some extra income. I wasn't going to switch careers. I was just going to add that a couple nights a week to, save a little extra money. But long story short, after about the first 6 weeks, I realized I was making as much doing as a nail tech, doing nails part-time, as what I was making on my full-time corporate job. So
Wow.
I took the next 20 months to make the transition. So then my aha moment came when I was sitting in a booth rent site. I'm a slow learner. So sitting in a salon, I realized the owner was collecting our booth rent and paying the rent on the salon space. And then she was collecting our booth rent and paying the salon space. And I thought, why doesn't she buy a building? Because she's going to have a salon for 20 years and she's going to have a shoebox full of rent receipts. And in 20 years, she could have a commercial space paid for. Why doesn't she just buy a building? And it was like, why don't I buy a building? What am I thinking?
Yep.
Yeah. It's a definitely a different mindset when you're younger and starting out, right? So it's like you're thinking about just getting into this space. But yeah, I mean, like Nick and I had similar thoughts with our office space that, it's like, why would we rent? Why not buy? So, I mean, like from day one, even though, we were delaying getting into an office space, we wanted to pursue the buy option versus the rent. Because like you said, then you just have a box of receipts. Okay, I've paid all this and what do I have to show for it?
Well, it's not only the investment piece of it, it's also the longevity piece of it and the certainty piece. Because I've seen business owners have to be relocated when rents change. The market, we're in an aggressive market, a very growing and exciting market here in Columbus, and leases go up. Leases expire after 2 to 5 years, sometimes 10. And they were like, oh, now these expenses are going up 30, 40%. If we would have bought, we would have been locked in at that. So yeah, it might be hard in the very beginning, but buying is certainly the way to go if you can swing it.
I don't know. In my opinion, it gives you more flexibility, if anything, with less hassle because you don't have to worry about being uprooted or dealing with a landlord that's unresponsive and doesn't want to put investment back into the property, and then you have headaches to deal with.
You said it. I also want to be in a place where I feel comfortable investing in a better workspace for not only for myself, but for my clients and for my coworkers.
Yeah. So Kathy, when you had this first aha moment, was it like, instantly you're like, yeah, why not just go out and buy? So you started looking for options to have like a purchase versus something where that's rented, or like, what was like the first step after you had that aha moment?
Well, my first step after having the aha moment is that I knew very well that I had to have a 2-year tax return being self-employed before I could even get a bank loan, because back then we didn't have all of the great financing options. They either were not available, they weren't as common, plus I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't even know to ask about hard money or private money or any other type of options or financing through an IRA. I mean, none of that was even on the radar. So here I'm thinking, okay, I have to go just a traditional commercial loan. I'm going to have 20% down, and I'm going to have 2 years of a tax return showing that I have the income to support this mortgage. And so I just buckled down and said, okay, I'm going to add as many hours as I can because I made the decision I was going to make that happen.
That's awesome.
So it took me a couple of years because I had to get all my ducks in a row.
Okay. So 2 years goes by, you have the stream of revenue now to prove that you're a worthy candidate for this traditional loan. You buy a building, you buy an office.
Yes.
And is this the one you converted from a house to a commercial space?
Yes, it is. And talk about not knowing what I didn't know. The block was already zoned commercial, and the owner of this house actually was living in it because it had been a residential block, but then the block had I don't know. When I say recently, I don't know how recently, but the block had gone commercial. It, like in many of these small little towns, that center core of the little town, those houses turn into bookstores and beauty salons and whatever, coffee shops. So this block was right downtown Canal Winchester, and it had just turned commercial. And so we didn't know what we didn't know. So I go down to the city offices and ask, what do I need to do? And of course I had to change the use from residential to retail, because the salon industry is in the retail category. So if you guys, I don't have to tell you guys what that means.
You need an architect.
Yeah.
But I had to learn what that meant.
need a team of people to help out at that point. Yeah.
Yes. But I didn't know that at the time. So that first one was a big learning curve for me. But it was exciting because, again, I'm a doer. I take action. I was ready to roll my sleeves up and figure it out. So,
and I'm sure the cost to make all this happen was also a little bit of a punch in the gut. A lot of people don't realize.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's, you know, we live this life, so it's just we don't think about it, but we encounter a lot of clients and potential clients who really don't have an idea. Like, this costs tens of thousands of dollars to switch
Right.
from a home to a place of business with, I mean, there are implications that we have to think about: higher structural requirements, MEP requirements, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, like all these different things, life safety.
Yeah, it's all, I mean, life safety is the biggest. I mean, that's really the primary reason why you have to start to think about all these different factors and all these different things, because now it's not your private house. It's a place of business where you have the public coming into this space.
Yeah.
Right. And life safety above all else is like number one in terms of like building code compliance. And that is driving a lot of these additional structural requirements or whatever else you have to do to truly convert it over to a place of business versus a residence.
So did you start rethinking the whole, I shouldn't have bought this place. Maybe I should rent.
Yeah, no, I didn't, because I still knew that at the end of the day, I mean, even if I spent, $10,000 or $20,000, it doesn't take too much to figure out, if you're paying a monthly rent, what you're going to spend in just a year's time in rent. And so I still knew I was going to be ahead if I did it. I just knew that I had to figure it out.
So you're a business owner. You're now you're working like crazy, putting in all your time to grow this, but you're also investing in real estate.
Yes, because as I'm working, again, if you remember in the conversation, once I started in the salon business, I made more money part-time than what I was doing full-time in corporate America. So at this point, I just simply added more hours. And so I quadrupled my income, and that gave me the cash flow, and having that first commercial building gave me the leverage. And so I ended up buying 4 more commercial buildings. I ended up retiring with 5 commercial buildings. But even then, during that 25 years, I still needed something else to invest some of that cash in. So then I started buying single family. I have some multifamilies. So now I'm very well diversified, because I have commercial space, I have residential space, and in the residential side, I have long-term, midterm, and short-term.
And along your journey, you decided to create your own real estate meetup, and you started educating people. You have a membership, and that's evolved over the years. But I know recently we kind of teamed up. You've brought Happy House Hunters over to Coin, and we've combined it, and now you're helping educate at Coin.
Yes. Again, once I was ready to retire, well, actually, before I retired from the salon business, I loved the real estate piece, and I love the salon piece as well, but I really love the real estate piece because it could become passive. I saw the potential there. And so then others were saying, well, how do I get started? Well, how did you get started? Well, what do I do? And so I sat down with my girlfriend at the time, and she was a realtor. We lost her during COVID. And so, as you know, we can talk about this later. I created an actual scholarship in her name to help folks that want to get licensed as a real estate agent. But she was a real estate agent, so she would get us into anything we wanted to see. And then I was kind of the mentor, educator behind the scene. And so I created a course called the 6 F's of real estate: how to find it, how to fund it, how to fix it, how to flip it, how to fill it, and then finally, what is your freedom number? How many of those do you have to do to make that day job optional? And so we just started growing from there. And I was doing in-person meetups prior to COVID. Then we did our meetups on Zoom, and then I went back to in-person meetups after COVID. But then when I decided that it was time for me to try to retire and travel more, I said, you know what? I think I'm just going to take my group over to Coin. You guys were doing great stuff, great presentations, great information. And also I realized, and this was the big aha for me at this stage of my life, I realized that I was the big fish in that pond. Everybody wanted to have 30 doors like me. And I'm like, I'm not the big fish. I wanted to take the lid off for some of these. I wanted to raise that ceiling for some of my students that I was mentoring. I told him, I said, you need to get in the room where somebody has 100 doors or 200 doors. I said, you don't want to stay in the room where the most successful real estate investor in the room has only 30 doors. And they all were striving. They thought they would have arrived if they, got close to what I had. I said, no, we need to raise this ceiling, because some of my, I'll call them students, some of them had so much potential that staying in the room with me was going to actually hinder their success.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant.
Well, yeah, different way to look at it, right? Like, obviously they're looking at you and they're saying, oh yeah, maybe that's enough, but yeah, you're right. It's like, why not shoot for, Nick always has these big eyes, big ambitions. Sometimes I question him, but I mean, like, it's good to have these
we
big...
are gonna design housing on the moon, Paul.
Okay. What I was about to say is, it is good to have these big, audacious goals for sure. It's like you always aim higher than you think you can even get to, because then you might actually get there. So it's like, why not aim at least for that higher ceiling?
Well, you don't even have to aim. If you struggle with that, and some of us do, the environment you put yourself in is what you become. So stop trying to build housing on the moon and get around people who want to, if that's what your blockage is. So I just need to find more people that want to build housing on the moon. Yeah. And put you in front of them.
Well, and part of my situation is that a lot of times I ended up being, when it was my group, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I ended up being the smartest person in the room when it came to real estate investing, because I was attracting a lot of those beginner investors. Yeah. And so I wasn't growing. And so when I put myself in the room with Coin, I am not the smartest person in the room, and I get to learn. I get to grow. I get to meet folks. I get to learn about all that other financing that I never knew about early on. Yeah. And so I wanted all of my students to have that same opportunity.
Yeah. But yeah, Kathy, I wanted to ask you, so you said from your first purchase to eventually when you expanded, how long of a journey was it? Was it a 10-year process, 20-year process to get to where you're at in terms of, where you have some freedom, that final
where this, I'm doing air quotes because it's not really retirement, but where you have the choice now.
Yeah. You have that freedom that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Was that a 20-year process?
Yeah, I actually did it in a 20-year process. I probably could have done it sooner, but I've learned one thing about me is that oftentimes I stay longer than I should have. I've reinvented myself, like every 20 years, like I was saying. And it seems like I always stay a couple of years where I could have made the transition 2 years sooner than what I actually did, but I always take that couple of years. And I want to have like one foot in each world for a couple of years before I finally step over the line. And so I'm not sure why. That's just something I've learned about myself. So I could have done it sooner, but Paul, I did take 20 years to get to where I don't think finally knew I could walk away from the salon.
There's probably not a set timeline for anyone or it just depends on the person and the situations at the time.
We look at, when I was younger, we look at people and we're like, oh, you did all this by 30 or by 40. I really think that people see the end results, right? And you see a small number of people who do achieve that in a short period of time. It's not impossible. However, the majority of people who do experience success, it's a journey. It does take time. There is some luck involved, but most of it is just hard work, repetitive work, and grinding it out. And eventually getting good at your craft and then finding systems and people to scale.
At age 60, when I did retire from the salons and I finally drew a line in the sand and said, okay, I really need to get out from behind the nail table and get on with retirement. At that point, I was afraid that I was going to get bored because I was so used to being busy all day in the salon industry. I had an appointment every hour on the hour. So then I thought, well, what am I going to do with myself? And I always wanted to write, and I loved the whole academy idea, and I wanted to give back. So that's when I made the transition into creating the scholarship program, the Stephanie Milo Jenkins Initiative. And then even on my website, I have an entire giving page. I give locally, I give statewide, I also give nationally and internationally. And on my giving page, if you scroll clear to the bottom, it's in real time, and it shows how many days of fresh water we gave a tribe, or how many days of of books we gave to school children, or uniforms to school children, or sewing machines to women in some country that are making tote bags because that's how they're supporting their family. And so all of that is going on inside the Academy on a daily basis.
Wow. And what's this website, Kathy?
Just go to kathybenner.com and scroll down. You'll see all the links, and you can scroll down to the giving page, and it'll show you all of that.
Amazing. We'll put that in the show notes too, so everyone can click on it if they want to check it out. I did want to talk about your writing, your career. You are a published author 4 times.
Yes.
And let's talk about that a little bit. Your first book and how that's changed. That's been a journey and an evolution as well, right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's kind of a sordid little story. I was still in the salon industry, and I was working every day in the salon business. And again, I have to try things out. So I thought, okay, first step before retirement is I'm just going to cut back on my hours. I'm just going to give myself some margin there in my schedule. And so I looked at the schedule, and I realized that Fridays was the crazy busy day in a beauty salon. And so I decided I'm going to take Fridays off and get my clients out of that crazy mix. And so I took my Friday clients and kind of rearranged them onto other days, and then I didn't have to go in. And it was the first time I'd given myself a Friday off ever in my entire work life. So now I didn't know what to do with myself on a Friday. So I saw this Facebook ad that said how to turn likes into raving fans. And I was like, oh, that's something to do. So I drove into Columbus, clear on the north side. I'm in Canal Winchester, so I'm a good, 30, 40 minutes away. And so I drove to this office building, and I found my way, and I sit down in the room, and this guy comes out, and he's got this little business presentation. But at the end of the day, he said, what I really do is, he said, I help people publish books. And I'm sitting there thinking, how did I end up in this room? Because I had always wanted to write, but I hadn't really even thought about that at that point. And so I thought, I'm going to hang in here. So I started going on Fridays just to hear what he had to say. And he had an online, I'll call it a little vanity press for those of you listening that know about publishing. It wasn't one of the big 5 publishers. And he had a little vanity press called Author Academy Elite. And so I got involved. And so over a 10-year period, I just kind of sat in the room with these would-be authors, but I'm still working like crazy at the salon. And I kept telling myself, it's the stories we tell ourselves. I told myself, I don't have time to write a book. So I'm not going to sign up for that because I don't have time. And it wasn't until I finally retired from the salon industry and I had time that I said, now's the time. Now I have time, and this is how I can spend some of my time. So I did. By this time, he had morphed into, some kind of an IP company. And so he still does some of the Author Academy Elite, but nothing like he did early on. But I got introduced to Wooster Publishing, which again is another little vanity publisher. And her claim to fame was a little different than the original guy. Hers was collaborative books, because she knew if you put more than one author together in a book, you'd have all of those authors pushing the publication in the right direction, not just one author trying to get it across to #1 bestseller. So I actually decided to pull the trigger. I signed up with Patricia with Wooster Publishing and became a co-author in her first collaborative book. And the name of the book is called To Speak, Lead, and Impact. So it basically is just my hero's journey, what I've just shared today, how I got started, how I ended up in real estate, and then how I moved on to giving around the world. And so that was the first book. And we went #1, I think, in 13 categories.
Wow.
And there were like maybe 20 authors. So there's 20 of us. And we ended up #1 in all those categories, like within the first 24 hours of hitting Amazon. And so then, and all of this again is on my website at kathybenner.com. Go down to the book page and you'll see all the books. But then the second one was Impact Entrepreneur, because she realized that I was making an impact around the world. And so she goes, oh, you really got to be in this one. So I'm like, okay, twist my arm. So I ended up jumping into the second book, and that one went #1. And then the third one, then I went through my weight loss and my journey back to some better health, because 25 years behind the nail table is not good for your health. Eating the wrong stuff and, doing the same motion, 10-hour days, that's not good. But I bypassed having any surgeries, which the doctor wanted me to have, and I got my health back and I've lost the weight. So the third book was Biohacking Entrepreneur. And she was like, oh, you got to be in this one because, of your, your fasting.
Transformation that you underwent. Yeah.
Yeah. So I jumped into that one, and that one went number one. And then the most recent one was Beyond Biohacking. And it's all about, not just biohack your health, but biohack your life, get the margins back in to do the fun stuff. So I ended up in this fourth publication, and it went number one in 4 categories within 24 hours.
Wow.
And so I like the collaborative book effort because, quite frankly, it's pretty darn easy as an author because I'm not trying to push that across the finish line by myself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And I didn't even know that was a thing. So thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious. So when you say there's like 20 different people that are contributing, are you like writing a chapter a piece, or you're kind of like consulting throughout the book? Like how? Yeah.
Yeah. Each of us write a chapter, but the publisher gives us the template.
Okay.
And she tells us, the flavor, the overarching flavor of the book. And so we write our chapter slanted toward that flavor. And then each of us have at least 5 questions that the exact same questions. And of course, our answers are going to be different, but all the authors have to answer those 5 questions within their chapter. And then her editor then puts it together so that it flows from beginning to end in the book.
Okay. I feel like I want to go read the biohack one. That sounds interesting to me.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Well, both times, again, this publisher puts together an entire conference with onstage presence because that, it's always kind of exciting to do something like that. And even though I'm a self-proclaimed introvert, I participate because I believe everybody needs to do their part. So I just make the decision I'm going to do it. So I've been on stage with doctors and attorneys, and I'm like, wow, who knew? Who knew this little nail tech from Canal, Winchester, Ohio?
So where are you at in this 20-year block of writing books and I guess meandering into the thought of retirement? What's the next thing for you?
Yeah, I'm 10 years in. I actually retired at age 60. I didn't think I was going to get to retire at all. But I retired at age 60. I did not work until 65, and I'll be 70 my next birthday. So I'm just 10 years in, and I'm kind of loving life. I bought a condo in Bayshore Gardens, just north of Sarasota in Florida. And so I fly in and out of Sarasota every 6 weeks or so. When you're an entrepreneur, you reach a spot in your entrepreneurial career where it's too much for you. You cannot 10x your business. It's too much for you to move on because it's so much to do. But the finances aren't quite there. The workload is there, but the finances aren't quite there. So you're like, well, if money were no issue, I would hire a staff and I would train them to do some of this stuff so that I could get back to having a little bit of free time. But the finances aren't there. So it's getting over that hump, if you will, is oftentimes where people stop as an entrepreneur. They'll stop and say, I tried to hire, an assistant and they didn't do it the way I did it. So I had to take it back over. The bottom line is this: when you're building that entrepreneurial business, it's like your baby.
Yeah.
You're up with it when it's sick, you're happy with it when it's well, and you only want to leave it with the best babysitters you can find. And as soon as a babysitter doesn't handle it the way you would, you're like, okay, I can't do that. I gotta be there. I gotta take care of it.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the biggest problem. And I had to tell myself, it's okay if something falls through the cracks.
Can you say that one more time?
It's okay if something falls through the cracks, Nick. It's okay.
Okay. All right.
She personalized it. She said, Nick.
That's the hardest thing. And so that was hard for me to overcome that. That was very hard for me to overcome that. But I wasn't going to have 5 salons with 5 commercial buildings if I didn't let go of some things. And it's okay if they didn't get done exactly the way I would have done them. And that was a tough one. That was a tough lesson for me. And so now that I have the academy, again, I've got a couple of virtual assistants, and it's okay if they don't do exactly the way I do it. But with technology that we have today, we have the ability to use a lot of systems and programs and platforms that we didn't have even 20 years ago that we have today that can take some of that load off of us.
Yeah. No, I think we're in a golden era. I've been an entrepreneur for, over a decade. And I feel like it's still very hard, but there are certain things that are a lot easier now. And it might be because of experience, but I really think technology is allowing us to scale in a way that, it's making it easier. And even social media and the way we brand, the way we market, the way we grow our business is it's different, right? And I feel like there's a lot of opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to actually decide, and again, it's all in a decision. I had to make a decision that I was going to be an early adapter when it came to different programs and platforms and technical options that I otherwise wouldn't look at. I was going to be an early adapter, and I was going to take the time, which often is what we don't do, is take the time to figure it out, because I knew in the long run, it would make a difference. In the long run, it would save me time. Even if it took me more time now to figure it out, it's going to save me time in the long run. And so that is how I got to my schedule, is by putting everything, systematizing everything that I can possibly systematize.
And you did that in real estate as well?
Yes, absolutely. My world changed when I finally uploaded all of my rental properties onto a property management platform. And again, I didn't know what I didn't know. And it started off in the short-term space where I was going to do short-term. And then I had like 3 different channels on how reservations came to me on the short-term. And I ended up having a couple of double bookings. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do people handle this? And finally somebody said, well, why don't you have a channel manager? And I said, what's that? And so when I learned that there was such a thing as a channel manager, I ended up putting my short term onto the channel manager and connecting those 3 channels. And now the 3 channels were talking to each other in real time through this channel manager. And it just immediately made my life easier overnight. And so then I said, well, if I can do that for short term, there's got to be something for long term. And everybody said, well, yeah, there's a whole bunch of platforms out there. All you got to do is just sign up for one of them. And so that's what changed my world overnight. So I have one software program to handle all my short term. I have one software program that handles all my midterm and long term. And I have one platform that handles all of my academy. And so now I have everything into 3 platforms. And so when I need to get help, Nick, you have to create a position, not a person. So now it's not like, well, Kathy does that. It's, well, the accountant does that, or the admin does that, or the receptionist does that. And so now it doesn't matter who I put in that position. I have a program, a platform, and a system that they follow. So now I can replace myself easier because I've systematized that whole part of my business.
So you're finding you're still staying busy, but you're also finding ways to economize your time so you can travel and.
Well, and the main thing for me is I just made a decision that I wanted to be able to do what I do from anywhere in the world. As long as I have a Wi-Fi connection in my laptop, I can, do tenant relationships. I can do I can get leases signed. I can follow up on insurance. I can pay property taxes. I can do all of that from my laptop from anywhere in the world. And I can do all of that communication. So having those platforms, like I said, all of my rentals, all my short-term is on an actual channel manager. All of my midterm and long-term is on a property management platform. And my entire academy is on a teaching platform. And so that allows me to work from anywhere in the world.
Amazing. Are you actively growing are you maintaining? Are you shrinking? Like how does that look for you based on what your goals are for the next decade or two?
With real estate, if somebody's going to give something away, I have to do my part and take it.
I was going to say, if the number makes sense, right? If the numbers work out and it makes sense, like why not?
Yeah. If the numbers are too, if the numbers are really good, I'm like, okay, twist my arm. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get this one. Because I understand how that works and I love real estate. So I probably find in that 6 F's of real estate, the finding. I love the finding piece. It's kind of like a little scavenger hunt for me. And so I probably spend an hour every day just looking to see if I can't find a great deal. And when you look that often, when a great deal comes across your desk, it's a great, you're like, okay, what is wrong with this property? How has somebody not gobbled this one up yet? I'm going to have to go look at this one. And I've purchased a couple sight unseen that way because I knew that they wouldn't last long. And I just would call up whoever had it and said, okay, I'll take it. I'll figure it out later.
Amazing. Yeah. I know Sarah and I love designing these spaces. So sometimes if we have a slow year or something, we're like, oh, we'll pick this up because we want to make this beautiful. That's what gets us excited. So you're a deal finder. You like the scavenger hunt.
Yes.
Fun.
Yes. Cool. And then I have a team that'll come in, depending on what it needs. I've got my HVAC guys, I've got my roof guys, and I just have them go in. Mark and I used to do all of it. And we still like to do it when we have the time or the wherewithal to do it. But the older we get, the less we're doing and we're just hiring it done. But I've been in it long enough that I have a team.
I love it.
So I can get it done.
What type of advice would you give to a young entrepreneur, a young investor, and there's some overlap there, who's afraid to pull the trigger?
Well, first of all, I have to go back and say this. I think it takes a certain personality to be an entrepreneur. Some people, first of all, you've got the employees, then you have folks that are self-employed, and then you have the entrepreneurs. A self-employed person and an entrepreneur is two different things.
Agreed.
A self-employed person, they just want to be their own boss. They don't mind punching the time clock. The plumber, the electrician, the HVAC guy. He just wants to punch his own time clock. He just doesn't want to have a boss, but he's not entrepreneurial. He doesn't really want to grow this great big corporation of any kind. He just wants to be his own boss. And he may never get past that. That may be his sweet spot, which is fine. So when it comes to an entrepreneur, they're the folks that get restless working for someone else because they have a vision and they can feel that they could really grow into something big, but they got to have the income, that base to launch. So I tell them, pretend that you are an entrepreneur on your day job. Pretend that your boss has given you, because a lot of times what happens, they convince themselves that they're just going to tread water until it's time to launch. So they're not really doing a good job on their job because they're hating it, because they're punching a time clock and they know there's a bigger, better world out there. And so they're really not doing the job. I tell them, I said, change your mindset that you've been hired as an entrepreneur to do this job. And at the end of every 2 weeks, you're going to get paid for your performance. You're not going to get paid because you showed up. You're going to get paid for your performance. Change your mindset that you are working as if it were your company. And this is you're getting across the finish line and doing a great product. You're providing a great service to whoever your employer is. And I said, then you'll be ready for that launch because you'll already be thinking entrepreneurial.
And if they're that good, they might even get offered a partnership or something, a new opportunity that they didn't even consider. And then
Exactly.
and then still have the income to invest should they decide to do that.
Exactly. It just changes the whole dynamic of how happy they want to get up in the morning.
I love that. Wow. Where were you 20 years ago, Kathy?
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, this has been a lot of fun. Can just tell our audience where they can find you. If there's anything else you want to mention more, please feel free to let us know here. And where can we find more about you?
Yeah, just go to kathybinner.com. That's my electronic business card. And again, I teach my students all the time. Make your audience, make it super easy for your audience to find you. And so what I did is I just point my domain to my electronic business card because it has everything broken down in links. And that way, if somebody just wants to hear about me being a speaker, they can go to the speaker link. Or if they just want to see the books, they can go to the book link. Or if they want to know more about the academy, they can go to the academy link. But what it does is it just gives a great, easy, no barrier way for folks to find out more about whatever they want to find out about. So kathybinner.com is the best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. And once again, thank you so much for joining us, Kathy. This has been so much fun.
Yes,
just listening to the conversation, was again, just thinking about the mindset and how to approach things. All these things are just jarring memories of my journey, the last 10, 20 years. So yeah, I think you're right. Every 20 years you should look at reinventing yourself. So I think Nick and I are getting into that phase right now where we're moving into the next phase.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it was a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And with that, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
This has been the Arcfluence Podcast. As always, you can get more information and additional content on arcfluence.com. Please subscribe on the platform of your choice and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.